Hello from Expo 2020 here in Dubai. This is real, this is actually happening. We are here in Dubai at the Expo, which is hosting the world for 182 days. The site is absolutely massive. It's bigger than 600 football pitches, bigger than Monaco, bigger than Central Park in New York even. It doesn't matter what analogy you use, there's a lot to get your head around. But thankfully, it's not just me that has to do that. I'm joined here by Dina Story, who is the Director of Sustainability Operations here at the Expo. Dina, hello, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for inviting me here for the week. Perhaps you could start by just explaining to the audience what an expo like this actually is, what it's about, but also more specifically what the purpose of an event like this, a mega event like this, can be from a sustainability perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I think it's a great event and you're here during one of the best weeks, which is Global Goals Week. Expos in general are all about bringing people together. This is the Expo, of course, started in Crystal Palace in the 1800s and has been moving throughout the world ever since then. And the whole point of an Expo is bringing people together. And in our case, the theme of the Expo is connecting minds, creating the future. And we have three sub-themes: opportunity, which is about human centricity and opportunity and the sustainable development goals; mobility, and that means not just the physical mobility but digital mobility as well; and sustainability. And the representation of that is what you see behind you, which is the sustainability pavilion, which is on itself an amazing structure and tells an amazing story about sustainability. So it's pretty exciting, and we're happy to have you here.
Thank you. I should say, I suppose if I took a slight step back, it would look like I'm wearing a sombrero, as we said earlier. But explain these structures. Like, what are these, and how do they fit into the sustainability of the event?
So the sustainability pavilion itself, as I said, is an anchor pavilion for the sub-theme of sustainability. What you see behind you are what we call e-trees. And they are solar panel trees that actually move with the movement of the sun to maximize efficiency and to harness the energy from the sun. And all of this feeds into the sustainability pavilion. But the entire site is actually built in a sustainable way. All of our permanent structures, which is over 80% of the site, is basically sustainable, following the LEED standards of gold and platinum. As an example, the UAE pavilion is LEED platinum. Even the KSA pavilion, the Saudi pavilion, which will be staying for legacy, is also LEED platinum. For infrastructure, it's SQL certified, and those certifications just may not mean anything, but the reality is those certifications gives us credibility from a sustainability perspective, that we're creating efficient buildings from an energy and water perspective. We're creating efficiency from an emissions perspective, and so we've reduced our carbon footprint, our embodied carbon footprint, as much as possible to ensure that. So these are just some of the examples.
Lots of examples, and incredibly important to have that kind of accreditation behind it as well. Talk to me a bit about your remit and your team's remit, because there's a kind of split, if you like, between the work that you're doing to raise awareness more broadly of sustainability and Dubai's progress around sustainability, but also the day-to-day hands-on operational sustainability aspects as well.
So our team's remit is basically to ensure that, of course, as I said, the buildings are sustainable, but they also operate sustainably. And the operations, the day-to-day operations, work in a sustainable way. An example of that, if you saw the smart bins and the waste segregation. Another example is making sure that we follow certain requirements in our food and beverage outlets, using as less plastic or single-use plastic as possible, and using biodegradable and compostable materials, which isn't so easy because we have to find technologies that work for the region, because it's a different climate. So what may work in the UK may not work here. And so there was a lot of testing to make sure that we have the right technologies and the right innovations to do that. The other side of what we're doing, of course, is stakeholder engagement, engaging with the government entities, with the private sector to bring in those innovations, and also engaging with our visitors, making sure that they are aware, making sure that they notice the plantings around you that you see the greenery. All of the trees are native and adaptive, for example. So as you walk through, you'll see these little signs that say, this is the type of tree, this is what we're talking about. And that not just shows the beauty of the landscape and the greenery here, even though people think, oh, Dubai, it's a desert. Really, there is a lot of greenery here. It also reduces our water footprint, which is very important.
I'm sure it's been a bit of a kind of labour of love, this kind of the work you've been doing over the months and years to get this all set up and running. Is there any particular project or site or operation that you're really proud of, that you think stands out, you're excited about, and that you recommend that I take a look at over the next few days?
Ooh, a very good question. To be honest, I can't. It's like making me decide which of my kids I prefer better. But to be honest, it would be wonderful if you do go to the Sustainability Pavilion and take a look inside. It has two different journeys, the under the ocean and under the forest. And it makes you think about certain decisions as us as individuals want to understand. For example, it'll ask you questions. Would you rather do this or this? Would you rather save 100 little animals or one big animal? And there's no right answer, but it asks you these questions and shows you what others are thinking as well. And there's a big board that tells you how people are answering these questions. So it's little things like that. I won't say it's my favorite pavilion, because I really can't tell you what my favorite pavilion is. I've gone, mobility is mind-blowing, and so is opportunity. And the country pavilions, forget it. I've not seen a lot of them because I work. My husband's seen many more.
I can imagine. I think I've got a tour due on the Sustainability Pavilion, so that will tie in quite nicely. I think we're running something on our podcast. I wanted to talk a little bit about, firstly, I suppose on the flip side of that last question, any particular challenges? What do you find is the biggest challenge when it comes to running a mega event like this from a sustainability perspective?
Again, an extremely good question. I mean, no event like this, mega event, doesn't have challenges. I think the one that we faced most is changing perception. And what we saw is, even though we are doing things sustainably, people are skeptical. So how do you communicate sustainability and change that perception? Because of course everybody sees Dubai as this big mega city, and that is the reality. However, there's this paradigm shift that's happening, and Expo is a great example of that. I would call Expo a pilot of sustainability that will occur and increase in the future, not just in Dubai but globally. The perception was the challenge. How do you change the perception? And in order for us to do that, we basically put everything out there. We had to be very transparent. So all our sustainability reports, and we have 3, and the 4th one hopefully will be coming up by the end of the event, tell the story of sustainability, and they follow the GRI standards. All our certifications are out there. The methodologies, our policies and procedures are also on the website. And that's one part of it. The other part of it is making sure that the visitor is also aware of all of these things.
Okay, and lastly, I wanted to talk about legacies, because obviously this show comes to an end on the 31st of March, but it doesn't just come to an end. There is a kind of a world, a life beyond that for the Expo. So could you talk a little bit about what that looks like from a sustainability perspective?
Absolutely, and to tell you the truth, the first department that was set up at Expo was the legacy department, and it shows you that basically we were thinking about legacy before we even broke ground and before we even built this space. As I said, over 80% of the site will stay for legacy, and it'll become District 2020, which is a mixed-use development, both for working and for living. It's going to be a walkable city, which is something really, really hard to understand, but the reality is it was built as a walkable city. And we are planning, of course, to ensure that the operations will also be sustainable within this walkable smart city of the future. The metro is close by, as you've seen. There are bus routes that bring you to here, and the city itself is compact, so it creates that capability to move around easily, even in the hot summer days, because there's shade structures that will remain as well.
What about your legacy? What happens next for you? Because I'm assuming beyond this, you'll still have a career. And I mean, what have you kind of taken from this project and learned, and how do you think that will play into what you go on and do next?
I think for me, this is besides my kids, this is the next big achievement of my life, and I can safely say that. I love this place, and I'm very proud of what we've done here. I think going forward, I don't know what the future holds for me, to be honest with you. I'll definitely stay in the region. I built my own friends and family here, and I believe that we have a lot of work happening going forward. We have, of course, the UAE's commitment to net zero by 2050, and that's something that we're saying, look at what we're doing here as a pilot, and then can we learn from it and can we expand it? So everything that we're doing, we're actually handing over also to the government entities to make sure that they're aware of what we're doing and using it going forward. COP28 is coming to the UAE in 2 years' time, so we have a lot of work cut out for us, and I'm very happy and honored to be here at the right time.
Well, me too as well. And on that exciting note, I'll bring this conversation to a close. Dina, thank you so much. You've given me so much inspiration and advice, and there's plenty of places I want to go and have a look at now. So thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in. There's plenty more interviews to come throughout this week, so stay tuned.